Hey guys, in this month's Historical Fiction 101, I'm going to be sharing with you some upcoming releases in historical fiction between July and December of 2024. So it's the halfway point of the year. It's time to seek out recommendations for historical fiction books that are coming out between July and December of this year. And as always, I'm going to be sharing with you guys 20 books that I found that kind of personally interest me. But yeah, that being said, if there's other historical fiction books coming out that interest you, please share with me down below so I can add them to my list to check out and see if I would like to get them. And yeah, as always, I'm going to be looking down here at my laptop and I'm going to be on Goodreads reading off the synopsises for all of these books. So yeah, now is the time. Pull up your Goodreads, and as I'm going through all these books, if any of these sound like your cup of tea, add them to your TBR. First up, A Rose by Any Other Name by Mary McMine. England, 1591. I'm already compelled right there. Rose Rush's passion for life runs deep. She loves mead and music, meddles with astrology, and laughs at her mother's warnings to guard her reputation. When Rose's father dies and a noble accuses her and her dear friend Cicely of witchcraft, they flee to the household of respected alchemists in London. But as their bond deepens, their sanctuary begins to feel more like a cage. To escape, they turn to the occult, secretly casting charms and selling astrological advice in the hopes of building a life together. This thriving underground business leads Rose to fair young noble Henry and playwright William Shakespeare, and so begins a brief, tempestuous, and powerful romance, one filled with secret longings and deep betrayals. And yeah, it's saying here that this is supposed to be like the inspiration behind like one of Shakespeare's sonnets, like the mystery of the Dark Lady that Shakespeare is always referencing in his sonnets. Next up, After Oz by Gordon McAlpine. Kansas, 1896. After a tornado destroys the Gale family farm, 11-year-old Dorothy goes missing. As the days pass by, the Gales are increasingly terrified the worst has happened. But when the girl turns up unharmed 4 days later, the townsfolk breathe in a sigh of relief. That is, until Dorothy herself relates her account of the events that took place after her disappearance. In vivid detail, Dorothy describes a fantastical land and its magical inhabitants. From the Scarecrow, the Tin Man, and the Cowardly Lion to the Wizard and the Witch, her recollections are not only regarded as delusional, but also as pagan and diabolical in nature, especially when the body of a local spinster is found. Making connections between the evil witch Dorothy claims to have defeated and the ill-tempered old crone, authorities find what they believe to be incriminating evidence, sentencing Dorothy to the Topeka Insane Asylum. Oh wow. When 28-year-old psychologist Dr. Evelyn Grace Wilford arrives at the asylum to interview Dorothy, she begins to wonder if Dorothy truly committed the crime or if something unfathomable has really occurred. Oh my god, you guys. Seriously, I love the fact that this is taking place after what we know of Wizard of Oz, and yet kind of what the natural reaction would be kind of during this time period, that people would think Dorothy was crazy. You know, she's just come back and she's like, oh my god, there was like a talking scarecrow and a talking tin man and a talking lion, you know. Of course people would think she was insane. So I love what this book is kind of doing, like what realistically would kind of happen, you know. Now, something I am interested in, because the plot synopsis downright says that 11-year-old Dorothy goes missing. Now, in the movie, she strikes me as older, but like in the original, the original Oz books, is Dorothy much younger? You guys, I need to look that up, because yeah, them saying 11-year-old Dorothy, that's really kind of bothering me right now. Next up, By Any Other Name by Jodi Picoult. And yeah, if this sounds kind of familiar to the first book that I just had on this list, that's because it kind of is. In 1581, Amelia Bassano, like most young women of her day, is allowed no voice of her own. But as the Lord Chamberlain's mistress, she has access to all theaters in England and finds a way to bring her work to the stage secretly. And yet, creating some of the world's greatest dramatic masterpieces comes at a great cost. By paying a man for the use of his name, she will write her own out of history. So then in the present day, because this looks like this is a book that has like alternating chapters, like modern and historical fiction setting. So in the present day, we have playwright Melina Green has just written a new work inspired by the life of her Elizabethan ancestor Amelia Bazzano. Although the challenges are different 400 years later, the playing field is still not level for women in theater. Would Melina, like Amelia, be willing to forfeit her credit as author just for a chance to see her work performed? Told in intertwining narratives, this sweeping tale of ambition, courage, and desire asks what price each woman is willing to pay to see their work live on, even if it means they will be forgotten. So yeah, I'm getting the idea that the lady in the 1500s, I have a feeling that she is going to be the true William Shakespeare, if that makes sense, because there's always been that historical conspiracy theory that what if Shakespeare was actually a woman? So I think this book is kind of playing with that. Next up, Christmas with the Queen. Doesn't this sound so happy and festive and jolly? And this is by Hazel Gaynor and Heather Webb. December 1952. While the young Queen Elizabeth II finds her feet as the new monarch, she must also find the right words to continue in the tradition of her late father and grandfather's beloved Christmas Day radio broadcast. But even traditions must move with the times, and the Queen faces a post-war Britain hungry for change. As preparations began for the royal Christmas at Sandringham House in Norfolk, two old friends, Jack Devereux and Olive Carter, find themselves reunited for the festivities. A single mother typist at the BBC and aspiring reporter, Olive leaps at the opportunity to cover the holiday celebration, despite self-doubts. When a chance encounter with the Queen presents an exciting opportunity, Olive begins to believe her luck might change. Jack, a grief-stricken widowed chef originally from New Orleans, accepts a last-minute chance to cook in the royal kitchens at Sandringham. When he bumps into a long-lost friend, an old spark is reignited. Despite personal and professional heartache, Jack and Olive's paths continue to cross over the following 5 Christmas seasons, and they find themselves growing ever closer, yet Olive carries the burden of a heavy secret. So we have Christmas Day 1957. As the nation eagerly awaits the Queen's first televised Christmas speech, Olive decides to reveal the shocking truth of her secret, which threatens to tear her and Jack apart forever, unless Christmas has one last gift to deliver. This book just sounds so cute and heartwarming. Yeah, taking place during Christmas. It says the book comes out in October, so yeah, this would be a good book to purchase in October and then around December, sit and read it in December for Christmas. Next up, The Haunting of Moscow House by Olesa Salonikova Gilmore. I previously read her book, The Witch and the Tsar. That book kind of ended up disappointing me a little bit, but I'm willing to give her another shot. It is the summer of 1921, and a group of Bolsheviks have taken over Irina and Lily's ancestral home in Moscow, a stately mansion falling into disrepair and decay. The remaining members of their family are ordered to move into the cramped attic, while the officials take over an entire wing of grand rooms upstairs. The sisters understand it is the way of things and know they must forget their noble upbringing to make their way in this new Soviet Russia. But the house begins to whisper of a traumatic past, not as dead as they thought. Eager to escape it and their unwelcome new landlords, Irina and Lily find jobs with the recently arrived American Relief Administration, meant to ease the post-revolutionary famine in Russia. For the sisters, the ARA provides much-needed food and employment, as well as a chance for sensible Irina to help those less fortunate and artistic Lily to express herself for a good cause. It might just lead them to love, too. But at home, the spirits of their deceased family awaken, desperate to impart what really happened to them during the revolution. Soon, one of the officials living in the house is found dead. Oh my god. Was his death caused by something supernatural or by someone all too human? And are Irina and Lily and their family next? Only unearthing the frightening secrets of Moscow House will reveal all, but this means the sisters must dig deep into a past no one in Russia except the dead are allowed to remember. Ooh, this sounds really thrilling. Next up, Hera by Jennifer Saint. When Hera, a mortal goddess and daughter of the ancient Titan Kronos, helps her brother Zeus to overthrow their tyrannical father, she dreams of ruling at his side. As they establish their reign on Mount Olympus, Hera suspects that Zeus might be just as ruthless and cruel as the father they betrayed. She was always born to rule, but must she lose herself in perpetuating this cycle of violence and cruelty, or can she find a way to forge a better world? Often portrayed as the jealous wife or the wicked stepmother, this retelling captures the many sides of Hera, vengeful when she needs to be, but also compassionate and mostly importantly, an all-powerful queen to the gods. Yes. Yeah, I'm glad to see Hera getting some much needed love. There's been so many Greek mythology retellings, and a lot of them have been really repetitive and the same stories. So yeah, Hera sounds a little bit new and unique, hopefully. And yeah, I have previously enjoyed Jennifer Saint. She's been a little bit up and down with me. I enjoyed Ariadne, but I didn't like Electra that much, so we'll see how Hera goes. Next up, The Housekeeper's Secret by Iana Gray. Standing in the remote windswept moors of northern England, Coldwell Hall is the perfect place to hide. For the past 5 years, Kate Furness has maintained her professional mask so carefully that she almost believes she is the character. She almost believes she is the respectable housekeeper of Coldwell Hall. This sentence is a little weird, you guys. Look it up on Goodreads. It's a little weird. I can't make sense of it. That's what it sounds like. She believes that she is the respectable housekeeper of this estate, it sounds like. It is the summer of 1911 that brings new faces above and below the stairs of Coldwell Hall, including the handsome and mysterious new footman, Jim Arden. Just as the house's shuttered rooms open, so does Kate's guarded heart to a love affair that is as intense as it is forbidden. But Kate can feel her control slipping as Jim harbors secrets of his own. Told in alternating timelines from the last sun-drenched summer of the Edwardian Age to the mud-filled trenches of World War I, The Housekeeper's Secret opens its doors to a world of romance, the truths we hold onto, and the past we must let go of. Next up, Lady Macbeth by Ava Reed. The lady knows the stories, how her eyes induce madness in men. The lady knows she will be wed to the Scottish brute, who does not leave his warrior ways behind when he comes to the marriage bed. The lady knows his hostile, suspicious court will be a game of strategy, requiring all of her wiles and hidden witchcraft to survive. But the lady does not know her husband has occult secrets of his own. She does not know that prophecy guides him like armor. She does not know that her magic is greater and more dangerous, and that it will threaten the order of the world. She does not know this yet, but she will. I love this plot synopsis here on Goodreads. It's just really vague and ambiguous. The thing is, though, I mean, if you know the story of Macbeth and Lady Macbeth's role and function in that, that's all this is. It's just a retelling of that told from Lady Macbeth's perspective, and I'm all here for it. I love the character of Lady Macbeth. She's so tragic and interesting. Next up, The Light Over Oslo by Alex Rikloff. This is set in Norway and Sweden in 1940. Cleo Jaffray was an American. A war in Europe had nothing to do with her. She told herself that right up until the man she loved went missing in Poland, and Cleo was forced to turn to the only person who might be able to help, her Aunt Daisy, the U.S. minister to Norway. Daisy Harriman has never shied away from a challenge, be it canvassing for women's suffrage or driving Red Cross ambulances in World War I. So as only the second woman ambassador, she is determined to prove the naysayers wrong and succeed in her post. When her disgraced niece Cleo lands on her doorstep, penniless and demanding help to find her lost lover, Daisy must balance her responsibilities as a diplomat with her desire to help her family. Their search for answers is interrupted when Germany invades Norway, and the two find themselves on the run in a countryside that is quickly becoming a battleground. Then, as Daisy is given the task of escorting the Norwegian crown princess and her young children to America, Cleo's lover resurfaces with a story that doesn't add up and dangerous enemies on his trail. Oh, yes, seriously. Oh god, this sounds so good, you guys. Next up, Maria, a novel of Maria von Trapp by Michelle Moran. In the 1950s, Oscar Hammerstein is asked to write the lyrics to a musical based on the life of a woman named Maria von Trapp. He's intrigued to learn that she was once a novice who hoped to live quietly as an Austrian nun before her abbey sent her away to teach a widowed baron's sickly child. What should have been a 10-month assignment, however, unexpectedly turned into a marriage proposal, and when the family was forced to flee their home to escape the Nazis, it was Maria who instructed them on how to survive using nothing but the power of their voices. It's an inspirational story, to be sure, and as half of the famous Rodgers and Hammerstein duo, Hammerstein knows it has big Broadway potential, yet much of Maria's life will have to be reinvented for the stage. And with the horrors of war still fresh in people's minds, Hammerstein can't let audiences see just how close the Von Trapps came to losing their lives. But when Maria sees the script that is supposedly based on her life, she becomes so incensed that she sets off to confront Hammerstein in person. Told that he's busy, she is asked to express her concerns to his secretary Fran instead. The pair strike up an unlikely friendship as Maria tells Fran about her life, contradicting much of what will eventually appear in The Sound of Music. You guys, I'm about to admit something pretty embarrassing here. I have never seen The Sound of Music. I'm not entirely sure what it's about. I do know some of the music in it through just pop culture, but yeah, I have never seen The Sound of Music. That's pretty blasphemous, ain't it? I do apologize. But this book, even though I've never seen The Sound of Music, this book still sounds really fascinating. Next up, Masquerade by... Guys, I do apologize. I'm going to butcher this. If I do end up purchasing this book later, I will definitely make an attempt to better pronounce the things that I'm about to go through here. But yeah, Masquerade by O.O. Sangyayami? I'm so sorry, you guys. Okay, it says this is that it's set in West Africa during the 15th century. So our main character, once again, I do apologize for butchering this. You guys, once again, if I do happen to purchase this book, I will look up a pronunciation guide. So our main character, Ododu, her hometown of Timbuktu has been conquered by the warrior king of Yorubaland. Already shunned as social pariahs, living conditions for Ododu and the other women in her blacksmith guild, they grow worse under Yoruba rule. When Ododu is abducted, she is whisked across the Sahara to the capital city, where she is shocked to discover that her kidnapper is none other than the vagrant who had visited her guild just days prior. But now that he is swathed in riches rather than rags, Ododu realizes he is not a vagrant at all. He is the warrior king, and he has chosen her to be his wife. Oh. In a sudden change of fortune, Ododu soars to the very heights of society, but after a lifetime of subjugation, the powers that saturates this world of battle and political savvy becomes too enticing to resist. As tensions with rival states grow, revealing elaborate schemes and enemies hidden in plain sight, Ododu must defy the cruel king she has been forced to wed by reforging the shaky loyalties of the court in her favor, or risk losing everything, including her life. And yeah, it says here that this is kind of like an African version of like the Greek myth of Persephone and Hades, and I'm totally here for it. Once again, you guys, I do apologize for butchering all of that. Again, if I do pick up this book, because it does genuinely sound really fascinating to me, and I love the cover art. Oh my god, with that elephant behind the lady. Ooh, so a beautiful cover design. If I do end up purchasing this book, I will definitely make a better attempt at pronouncing the names properly. Next up, The Nightingale's Castle, a novel of Elizabeth Bathory, the Blood Countess, by Sonia Velton. In 1573, Countess Elizabeth Bathory gives birth to an illegitimate child. Secretly taken to a peasant family living in the foothills of the Carpathian Mountains, the infant girl is raised as their own. Years later, a young woman called Boroka, ignorant of her true history, is sent to join the Countess's household. Terrified of the Countess's murderous reputation and the brutally cruel women who run the castle, Boroka struggles to find her place. Then plague breaches the castle walls, and a tentative bond unexpectedly forms between the girl and the Countess. But powerful forces are moving against the great lady whose wealth and independence threatens the king. Can the Countess trust the women seemingly so close to her? And when the show trial begins against the infamous Blood Countess, where will Boroka's loyalties lie? Ooh. I've never really entirely read a proper book focused on Elizabeth Bathory because, you know, she has that whole vampire vibe going on. You know, the rumors that she's a vampire. She really wasn't, but you know. Yeah, I've never read a book proper about her, but this sounds really good. Next up, The Seventh Veil of Salam by Silvia Moreno Garcia, probably one of my most anticipated for the remainder of this year. 1950s Hollywood. Every actress wants to play Salam, the star-making role in a big-budget movie about the legendary woman whose story has inspired artists since ancient times. So when the film's mercurial director casts Vera, an unknown Mexican ingenue, in the lead role, she quickly becomes the talk of the town. Vera also becomes an object of envy for Nancy Hartley, a bit player whose career has stalled and who will do anything to win the fame she believes she richly deserves. Two actresses, both determined to make it to the top in Golden Age Hollywood, a city overflowing with gossip, scandal, and intrigue, make for a sizzling combination. But this is the tale of three women, for it is also the story of the Princess Salome herself, consumed with desire for the fiery prophet who foretells the doom of her stepfather Herod, a woman torn between the decree of duty and the yearning of her heart. Ooh. Next up, A Song to Drown Rivers by Anne Liang. And once again, you guys, very much like with Masquerade, if I do happen to pick this book up, I will definitely make a better attempt at looking up a proper pronunciation guide. Zishi's beauty is seen as a blessing to the villagers of Yu, convinced that the best fate for a girl is to marry well and support her family. When Zishi follows the attention of the famous young military advisor Fan Li, he presents her with a rare opportunity to use her beauty as a weapon, one that could topple the rival neighboring kingdom of Wu, improve the lives of her people, and avenge her sister's murder. All she has to do is infiltrate the enemy palace as a spy, seduce their immoral king, and weaken them from within. Trained by Fan Li in everything from classical instruments to concealing emotion, Zishi hones her beauty into the perfect blade. But she knows Fan Li can see through every deception she masters, the attraction between them burning away any falsehoods. Once inside the enemy palace, Zishi finds herself under the hungry gaze of the king's advisors, while the king himself shows her great affection. Despite his gentleness, a brutality lurks, and Zishi knows she can never let her guard down. But the higher Zishi climbs in the Wu court, the farther she and Fan Li have to fall, and if she is unmasked as a traitor, she will bring both kingdoms down. Oh, hell no. Next up, The Briar Club by Kate Quinn. Washington, D.C., 1950. Everyone keeps to themselves at Briarwood House, a down-at-the-heels, all-female boarding house in the heart of the nation's capital, where the secrets hide behind white picket fences. But when the lovely, mysterious widow Grace March moves into the attic, she draws her oddball collection of neighbors into unlikely friendship. Poised English beauty Fliss, whose facade of perfect wife and mother covers gaping inner wounds. Police officer's daughter Nora, who is entangled with a shadowy gangster. Frustrated baseball star B, whose career has ended along with the Women's Baseball League of World War II. And poisonous gung-ho Arlene, who has thrown herself into McCarthy's Red Scare. Grace's weekly attic room dinner parties and window brewed sun tea become a healing balm on all their lives, but she hides a terrible secret of her own. When a shocking act of violence tears apart the house, the Briar Club women must decide once and for all who is the true enemy in their midst. Next up, The Bright Sword by Lev Grossman, another book that I'm super excited about. A gifted young knight named Colum arrives at Camelot to compete for a spot on the Round Table, only to find he's too late. The king died 2 weeks ago at the Battle of Camlan, leaving no heir, and only a handful of the knights of the Round Table survive. They aren't the heroes of legend like Lancelot or Gawain. They're the oddballs of the Round Table from the edges of the stories, like Sir Palomides, the Saracen knight, and Sir Dagonet, Arthur's fool, who was knighted as a joke. They're joined by Nimue, who was Merlin's apprentice, until she turned on him and buried him under a hill. Together, this ragtag fellowship will set out to rebuild Camelot in a world that has lost its balance. But Arthur's death has revealed Britain's fault lines. God has abandoned it, and the fairies and monsters and old gods are returning, led by Arthur's half-sister Morgan Le Fay. Kingdoms are turning on each other, warlords are laying siege to Camelot, and rival factions are forming around the disgraced Lancelot and the fallen Queen Guinevere. It's up to Colum and his companions to reclaim Excalibur, solve the mysteries of this ruined world, and make it whole again. But before they can restore Camelot, they'll have to learn the truth of why the lonely, brilliant King Arthur fell and laid to rest the ghosts of his troubled family and of Britain's dark past. Ooh, this sounds so good. Next up, The Instrumentalist by Harriet Constable. Anna Maria della Pieta was destined to drown in one of Venice's canals. Instead, she became the greatest violinist of the 18th century. Anna Maria has only known life inside the Pieta, an orphanage for children born of prostitutes. But the girls of the Pieta are lucky as most babies born of their station were drowned in the city's canals. Oh my god, that's terrible. And despite the strict rules, the girls are given singing and music lessons from an early age. The most promising musicians have the chance to escape the fate of the forced marriage to anyone who will have them. Anna Maria is determined to be the best violinist there is, and whatever Anna Maria sets out to do, she achieves. After all, the stakes for Anna could not be higher, but it is 1704 and she is a girl. The pursuit of her ambition will test everything she holds dear, especially when it becomes clear that her instructor, Antonio Vivaldi, will teach Anna everything he knows, but not without taking something in return. From the opulent palaces of Venice to its mud-licked canals, The Instrumentalist is a portrait of opportunities dangled only to be snatched away. It is the story of one woman's irrepressible ambition and rise to the top, and it is the story of the orphans of Venice who overcame destitution and abuse to make music, and whose contributions to some of the most important works of classical music, including the Four Seasons, have been overlooked for too long. Next up, The Paris Gown by Kristen Wells. 1957. Three friends, Margot, Gina, and Charlotte, share an apartment above a bookstore in Paris. Margot is a 22-year-old Australian, having the time of her life, having been sent to the City of Light to be finished before her debut. Margot falls in love with Paris all over again. In her mind, all she needs to complete her transformation is a gown from the spectacular designer Christian Dior, particularly if she wants to catch the eye of Peter Mountbatten, a distant cousin of the Queen. Gina is an American blue blood whose family has fallen on hard times. She's run away to Paris and is now working in a bookstore while writing a novel at night. But then she receives an invitation to a high society ball at the American Embassy, where the man who once jilted her will also attend with his new wife. Gina must have a knockout gown to wear. French chef Charlotte is the lone girl in a family of boys and one of the very few women working in the stubbornly sexist restaurant business. She's always thought herself homely compared with her conventionally pretty mother and is more interested in her work than fashion. But that is about to change. One night, Margot proposes to share the cost and the gown with her two best friends and roommates. Each will put in some of her savings, and they'll each get to wear the gown in turn. Okay, this sounds like all three of these women, they're going to go to this party. They're all going to somehow share this gown by Christian Dior. That they're all going to just miraculously, all three of them are going to be the same size. And yeah, I sense that things are going to go bad. Next up, The Starlets by Lee Kelly and Jennifer Thorne. Vivian Rhodes thinks she finally landed her break playing Helen in Apex Pictures' big-budget Troy epic, 1,000 Ships, an anticipated blockbuster meant to resurrect the failing studio. Naturally, she's devastated when she arrives on the remote Italian island and finds herself cast as Cassandra, while her nemesis, the fiancé still in Lottie Lawrence, America's supposed sweetheart, is headlining instead. The tension on set, though, turns deadly when the ladies discover that members of the crew are using the production as a front for something decidedly illegal, and that they are willing to kill to keep their dealings under wraps. When the two women find themselves on the run and holding key evidence, Vivian and Lottie frantically agree to work together to deliver the proof to Interpol, hoping to protect both their lives and their careers. Staying one step ahead of corrupt cops and looming mobsters, the arch-rivals flee across the seas. Their journey leads them into Monaco's casinos, Grace Kelly's palace, on a road trip through the Alps, even onto another film set, before a final showdown, where the lives of the entire cast and crew hang in the balance. Vivian and Lottie finally have a chance to be real heroines to save the day, the film, maybe even each other, but only if they can first figure out how to share the spotlight. Okay, this sounds good. The golden age of Hollywood, two actresses who are in competition for each other because they both want to play Helen of Troy and this Fall of Troy epic, it sounds like. And yeah, there's something happening in the background. There's some illegal shenanigans happening. This sounds really good and like a lot going on, but I love it. And the last recommendation that I have here, The Windsor Conspiracy, a novel of the Crown, a Conspiracy, and the Duchess of Windsor by Georgie Blalock. American Amelia Montague defied her family 5 years ago to marry the man she loved, but that decision cost her everything. Disowned by her family and left a penniless widow after her husband's death, Amelia becomes her cousin Wallis Simpson's private secretary in France. With no other prospects available, Amelia has no choice but to succeed, and under their Aunt Bessie's direction, hopes to have a positive influence on Wallace and the Duke of Windsor. During the next 2 years, Amelia realizes that not everything with the Windsors is glittering happiness. Beneath the facade of the besotted couple simmers Wallace's rage at her stunted ambition, and the couple soon reveal themselves to be self-centered Nazi supporters who pursue their own interests at any cost. Oh my. When the Germans invade France and the Windsors leave Amelia to escape the Gestapo on her own, Amelia finds herself in position to work for the most unlikely of employers, MI5 and the FBI. Convinced to work undercover, Amelia joins the Windsors in Nassau and realizes that Wallace's treachery extends far deeper than the U.S. and British government ever knows. Ooh, that sounds good. So you guys, that is it for all of the historical fiction recommendations that are coming out here from July to December for the remainder of this year. In the comments below, any of these books sound interesting to you guys? Any books that I left off of this list? Let me know. So that's it for this video. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And if you like this video, you may like these other videos. Bye guys.